Hi everyone and welcome back to Economic Street. I'm Ola.
And I'm Nicholas.
And we're the show that brings the city to the street, helping you understand your finances better so that you can then make the most of it. Now today we're going to be covering a few questions that we've received from our viewers and listeners. Talking about different things. So from shares, property investment. So yeah, Nick, let's just jump into it.
Yeah.
So the first question we got is to do with what happens when you want to sell your shares.
Yeah.
So the question was, if you want to sell your shares, is it a guarantee that it will be sold? Why in the movies, like when you know all those films about trading, why in the movies do they always find someone to sell? So who's buying the shares?
Yeah.
And surely if no one wants to buy, then you can't sell, right?
Yeah.
Or how does it work? So yeah, just explain that process.
Yeah, so let's start with the first point in terms of the price, your sellout. That's not guaranteed. So what you could do, for example, you could put something called a limit price in. So what a limit price is, that's a price that you would only want your shares to sell at.
So the minimum you're willing to
Correct.
accept. Right.
So what happens is, if the market at the time doesn't go anywhere near that price, then yeah, your shares effectively won't sell. So you'll basically keep them. But if it does hit that, then that will send out an execution for it to be traded, and then you'll sell at that price.
Right, okay.
But so how that kind of leads into the second question. So how that works, when you want to sell your share, you send that request to your broker for them to sell that share on your behalf. But brokers don't actually just work on the customers. They actually, some brokers trade on their own account.
Right, okay.
So what happens is, in the marketplace, you have many different brokers put in bids. So what a bid is the right to buy, and an ask. An ask is what you're prepared to sell a share for. Okay. So they will put their bids and asks into the marketplace. Okay. And what happens is it will get put on what's called an order book. So you'll have different bids and asks for your particular share. And then when other firms place in their bids and asks, they will match off and what they call execute. So they'll match off. So you say you're selling for 60, I want to buy for 60. They will then match off, becomes a trade, and then the shares will be exchanged.
So it's almost like a blind auction.
Correct. It is. Although there's difficulties. You can actually see the order book in terms of when you put in your
ask off.
Correct. So that's in terms of also why, in terms of when you're selling, there's 2 points. So when you see on your brokerage screens, there's a bid and an ask. That's what it's currently trading at. So what someone's prepared to buy for and what someone's prepared to sell for.
Okay, that was actually going to lead into one of my next questions, which is, some people have been asking, why is it immediately they buy shares, the value goes down? It's because of that spread.
The spread in the bid and the ask. So you have a spreads, because obviously brokers themselves want to make their own profits, commissions. Right. So there's a spread between the bid and an ask. Okay. So that's why it automatically changes. As soon as it executes, you have a change in the bid and the ask.
Right, okay. So just to give people an explanation, it's like you go and buy a share for £100.
Yep.
And then immediately as you bought it, the price that will be showing will be like 99, because that is the price that you'll be able to sell it at.
Yep.
So you have to then wait until the
market change, because how obviously prices works is supply and demand. Okay. So if the stock that you're buying, there's a lot of demand for it, that tends for the price to go up. Okay. And then if vice versa, if there's not a lot of demand for it, that tends for the price to go down. So that's why different firms put in their bids and asks. So as I said, a firm will act on your behalf, but they also trade on their own accounts as well. Okay. So there's the difference in terms of the bid and asks. And they all go into the same marketplace, and then once they match off the bid, your bid matches my ask, that will then execute, and then you do a deal.
So you will always find a buyer.
Yeah, that's essentially why in the movies you essentially, unless a stock is really what we call illiquid. Where what I mean by illiquid is where the stock actually, there's not a lot of demand for it. Okay. So there is, it could be a stock where something's happened in the marketplace and no one wants to trade in it.
Yeah, they're not touching it.
Or there's a scandal, for example. So that's what we call an illiquid stock, where it doesn't really move that much. Okay. So in that case, that's where you have a situation where you might not potentially find a buyer or a seller for that instrument.
Okay. In that situation, what then happens? You just keep holding on to
That's
it.
that's the thing. You actually, that share is yours. So yeah, so you do, because if you can't find a seller, you effectively have to keep
unless
it.
you're willing to then drop the price.
Correct. So you either make a crazy loss, because it depends if it's dropped dramatically, or you just hold it until hopefully that it recovers.
Okay. Cool. So I hope that's answered that question. The next question we had is, if I want to buy shares I'm in the UK,
Yep.
and I want to buy shares in an American company or a Japanese company, maybe Google or Apple
Okay.
or Nissan.
Okay.
How would I go about it from the UK? Because aren't there sort of laws and rules around
Yeah,
that?
there's two ways. The easiest way, the most simplest way, is that when we talk about mutual funds,
Okay.
that would be the best way of investing in those shares.
Right.
Because as we discussed in our mutual fund video, mutual funds contain different assets within that fund, and some of them contain international shares.
Companies. Okay.
Correct, and companies. So if you want to invest in those companies, look for mutual funds that have those companies in their portfolio.
Right. Okay. So usually they'll be called like US companies or
Correct.
Japanese small companies or large companies or European companies.
Yeah.
That's what the funds would
Yeah, so that would probably be the most easiest way, the most basic way.
Okay.
The other way is to actually look for specific brokers that trade in international companies and stocks, because some brokers in the UK some of them are just UK based.
Yeah.
So you have to then look for brokers that trade in international companies, and then also in that case you have to fill out certain forms to trade in international companies for tax purposes.
Yeah.
So
I had to do that through my broker. I had to, before they allowed me to even touch any products from the US.
Yeah.
There's a form I had to download and
Makes
send
sense.
off. I think can't remember what it's called.
I think it's a W8 form.
Yeah, this
correct.
is through Hargreaves and Lansdowne. So that makes a lot more sense then.
So there's twofold. So the benefit of if you do it through another broker and fill out the form, is that you can then directly because if you just want to own shares in Google for say, you can then directly just purchase those Google shares.
Yeah.
But it's the twofold. So the mutual fund allows you to invest in those companies quickly without filling in those forms. But because it's a mutual fund, it's also invested in other products. Yeah. Correct. Where if you want to directly do it, then you have to look for a broker that does international shares. But then, you have to fill in the tax forms for tax purposes and then do it directly through them.
Makes sense. Cool. My next question on shares was, so I had someone come up to me and was like, I'm thinking of investing like £10 in this stock. Mm-hmm. But I said that doesn't make sense because usually, like in our mutual funds video, we discussed about the fact that you have to pay brokerage fees.
Yep.
So, I mean, this particular broker was charging £12 per transaction. So if you're only going to invest £10,
that's pointless.
because you have to then include the broker
fees
fee to then understand what your position is. So, if you're only going to invest £10, that means you're asking for the share to double in price before you even
effectively
make back the broker fee. So that's something that I just wanted to bring to people's attention.
Yes, so
to be aware of.
With the different brokers there are in the markets, they all offer different solutions and services. But as you said, the fees are a great point. So certain brokers, because they may offer a lot of, say, analysis of instruments and data, they may charge a higher broker fee. So again, you need to do the trade-off. Do you want access to that information, but then pay the higher broker fee? Or look for a broker where the fees are a lot smaller, but in terms of the analysis of stocks and a lot of information, they don't provide that.
I see.
So you need to weigh up, are you confident and comfortable enough to where I can be like, well, I can do the analysis myself. I just want the cheaper execution so I can make the biggest gains. Or are you somewhere where I would prefer to have that information, because I'm saying there's no guarantee of anything when it comes to stocks. So although they give you analysis or you do analysis yourself, there's still no guarantee. So you may think, well, I want a bit more comfort. I want to use their analysis. So I'm prepared to pay the higher broker fee to
for
that privilege.
Okay.
So that is a good question. But then again, you need to weigh it out because there's no point investing £10 if the fees are £12. It makes no sense.
You're going to be holding them for
a long time. So yeah, the fees are good. As you said, that's a good thing to look out for in terms of when you're choosing a broker. What fees are they charge?
Okay, cool. Let's leave it there with regards to shares.
Yep.
And let's move on to property. Now we have a few questions also that we've got on property following our property episode.
Yep.
The first one is to do with if they want to buy a property for themselves. So if they have like a lump sum,
Yep.
like 15k that want to put towards a deposit, and then they want to use a government scheme like the Help to Buy.
Yep.
Because the Help to Buy offers 25% bonus.
Yeah.
Can they put that lump sum straight away into the Help to Buy to then claim that bonus?
Unfortunately, no. So there's two Help to Buys. You've got the Help to Buy ISA and then the Lifetime ISA, which you can use off. The Lifetime one you can use to put towards property or your retirement.
Okay.
Both of them give you a bonus
25%.
of 25%, and both of them have different amounts. So the Lifetime one, the maximum you can put in a year is £4,000.
Okay.
And then for the Help to Buy, the maximum you can put in, if it's £2,000 for the year.
Wow. Okay.
So that's the thing. They do help you,
Right.
but not if you're in a position where you already have a large lump sum.
Right. Okay.
Obviously, you still can use it to get the 25%, so still get help, but to maximize.
You're gonna have to wait a few years.
For years, yeah. So say if you're ready to buy a property now, you say you've got £20. I wish you could have £20. You've got say a £20,000 deposit.
Yeah.
You only can use a little bit of that.
You can only use like the 3,000 or the 4,000.
Correct, depending on which one ISA you're in. So you can't just, if you've got a lump sum, put all that lump sum in, get a 25% on that lump sum, and then use it to purchase a house. Unfortunately, that's not available.
So that kind of is the catch 22.
Yeah. Okay. It's more of a point if you're looking to buy in the future, then you can start from now and start putting in. But if you've already got a lump sum, unfortunately, that's not the case.
It's not really going to be for you. Especially also because they don't pay you that bonus as soon as you put the money in.
Correct. So on the Lifetime one, it's done at the end of the tax year.
Okay.
Which is
5th April.
Correct, as we've done discussed before. And with the Help to Buy, that's done when you're kind of near completion.
Wow.
So it's towards the end. So what happens is it's your solicitor. You give the details to your solicitor, and the solicitor goes to get that signed off, and the funds are transferred from the government into your solicitor's details.
And obviously, to be close to completion in the first place, you kind of
already need
the money. So
correct.
It's, again, a catch 22. Wow. Okay. So it's starting to make a bit more sense. The next question I was going to ask is that on the Help to Buy, you also have another government scheme called the equity loan.
Yes, you do, yeah.
And that provides up to 20% of the property value as a loan. And it's interest-free for 5 years.
Yeah.
But explain how this can catch people out.
Yes, so the government are trying to encourage people to become homeowners, and so especially with the rising prices of property, they're trying to give you help. So yeah, the equity loan is another form of help, because what they will do, as you said, a minimum of 5% up to 20% of the property value, they'll give you as an equity loan to purchase that house. So what happens is they'll give you that as a deposit, and then what happens is it's interest free for 5 years, but after the 5 years, you start paying interest on that loan.
Okay.
So if you've not budgeted for that jump of when you start paying interest, you could be caught out, because you're not only paying your mortgage, you still then have to start paying back the government their loan.
So it's almost like paying two mortgages.
Essentially, that's a great way to put it. So if you've not budgeted for that jump, that's where some people can get caught out, because they've then got effectively kind of two mortgages to pay, and then if you've not budgeted for it, you can kind of start being in a position to struggle. But then on the flip side, what happens is, in terms of getting that back, so say if you then sell that property that you use the equity loan to pay for, what happens is when you sell it, you pay back the government their share out of the property, and then you keep the remainder of the property.
Of the profit. Okay, that makes sense. wanted to come back to the point that you made on liquidity.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You were saying, does that affect or can that affect all types of shares, liquidity?
Yeah, so basically with liquidity, so the more liquid an instrument is or a share is, the more likely it is to buy and sell.
Right.
So think of liquidity in terms of, say if you have a harvest,
Okay.
and you have a good harvest. So there's a lot of apples. So you're harvesting apples. So there's a lot of apples to buy because you've had a good harvest. So you say it's quite a liquid thing, so a liquid product. So you got a lot of apples.
I see. Okay. So
Where say if you had a bad harvest and there's not a lot of apples available, it's quite illiquid because you can't buy and sell as freely because there's not as much available. So in terms of a share, you'd prefer a share to be liquid because in the case of if you want to sell it or you want to buy it, it's a lot easier. Where if it's an illiquid share, to try and buy or sell it becomes a lot more difficult. Because say if you're in a situation where you urgently need to sell a share, it becomes a lot difficult if there's no buyers in the market.
right. Okay.
So say the big companies, what we call the FTSE 100 companies, they're very liquid FTSE 200 companies. But then you have
So these are like your Tesco's, your
Vodafone, Sainsbury's. They're very big companies, so they're what we call very liquid. But you have other smaller type of companies that may trade on, say, AIM. So AIM is a segment on the London Stock Exchange for smaller startup firms that are not as liquid as, say, your Sainsbury's and your Tesco's.
What does AIM stand for?
AIM, Alternative Investment Market.
Okay.
So yeah, so in terms of that, you always prefer to have a liquid stock rather than a liquid stock.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks for that. Final question, just coming back to the help to buy stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got help to buy lifetime ISA. From what age can people start to use this?
So it's from 18.
Okay.
So from 18, you can start to use those ISA schemes.
Okay. I know
Go
the lifetime one, there's a cut-off limit of the age of 40.
Correct, because the lifetime one's linked to pensions as well.
Right.
So that's why there's a cut-off limit for the lifetime ISA. So I would say essentially there's something to start from now because the fact of from what we talked about, not everyone even has a lump sum to pay into it anyway. So definitely start from now because you can start building. As I said, the lifetime one you can choose towards your pension or your house, or the help to buy one where that's just for your house only. So if you start now, then you can build up for then you can get the extra 25% to help you to fund your home.
I know the lifetime one also, if you then decide that you want to take your money out for whatever reason, you can be penalised.
That's correct, yeah.
So you
So
have to
watch out and check at what time you're taking money out, how that works. So it's different. So at that stage, I'll say just double check before you do anything like that.
Okay. My other question, or final question again, is help to buy. The difference between help to buy and lifetime. Another difference is the fact that with help to buy, you can only buy
New builds. So yeah, correct. So that's a good. Well, actually, you can only use the help to buy ISA as it stands for new build properties. So
and usually, like the house builders know this if you're coming through that
and the prices, as in the new build prices, tend to be a lot more than older prices. So that's another catch-22 of the help to buy ISA. It can only be used to fund or to buy a house in a new build. Where the lifetime one, you can choose of your choosing of where you want to purchase your home.
Okay, really good to know. Well, I hope that has shed some light on some issues and areas that you might have had some questions on. Please do continue to send your questions in and we'll continue to answer them as best as we can. But for now, that's it from us. Keep it locked. Definitely subscribe to the channel, share, like the videos, and yeah, look out for us. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.